Yeah, well, hi everybody. I'm going to try and attempt to answer all of the questions that have been posted or put on Facebook as I promised. All the questions fell into three categories really. People want to know about me, what my history is, why I'm doing what I'm doing, what have I done in the past, where do I live now, do I live in France, and age and everything like that. So I'll cover that area first. Also, why are we doing what we're doing? What attracted us to go into France? What's the ins and outs of buying houses in France? What do we intend to do with the property down the line? And then also the future, it covers some of the same things like what are we going to do? Are we going to live there full time? Are we going to just use it as a holiday home? Are we going to rent it out? So let's start. Lots of questions about myself and why I bought this house in France. I'm 64. Because of that, I should know better than take on a project like this at my age. I'm not a builder, never have been. I live in Derbyshire, in the UK, with my partner Suzanne. I worked for 30 odd years in the furniture industry in the UK. While I was working for a company who shall remain nameless, and it wasn't Scotchgard, but we were selling fabric protection in this country, we were all sacked overnight after I'd been there 13 years. 3 years later, we won a compensation claim against them, which was quite a substantial amount of money. And that gave me the money and the idea that I could probably buy a house in France. I'd been watching the programmes as everyone in the UK did at the time, called A Place in the Sun, Home in the Sun, No Going Back, which was all about people going abroad, buying property, basically doing it up, starting a new life. So I was really interested in going over to France. France is so easy to get to for people in the UK. I am, at that time, around about 45 years old. It's about 20 odd years ago. So we went over, had a look around, and we landed in a place called La Rochelle, which is an absolutely beautiful, stunning town. And I think the reason we went there was solely because our local airport flew direct there, and it was just under an hour's flight. And if it hadn't flown to there, we probably would have gone somewhere else. But we went there knowing very little about the area. We travelled around for a week. This is my previous partner and myself. We travelled around for a week, looked at a lot of properties, made a lot of appointments to look at properties. On the very last day before we flew out, the following day, we were driving down this road. It was throwing it down with rain, and there was a van in front of us driving quite slowly because of the weather. The van slowed down to pull over, and we slowed down. And at the same time, we looked across the road, and there was an estate agent there. And it was, should we, shouldn't we, let's go home, we'll come back another time. But anyway, we decided to go in and to this estate agents, and within an hour we bought a property. We told them what we were looking for. They sent us to this house, which I'll show a pic of. Which was at the time in very poor condition. And we looked around it and we knew there was a lot of work to do, but as soon as we saw it, we knew this was the property we wanted. We didn't even know the name of the village. We didn't even know what area we were in or anything. We just pulled over and just knew this was a property. And I think if I remember rightly, they were asking something like £35,000 for this house. We were quite happy to pay that. And if I remember rightly, we paid the cheque there and then for the deposit, which is 10%. And off we tootled back to England. And as I say, I'll come back onto the system later. But yeah, we bought that property, and we didn't realise it at the time, but we actually bought in this village called Chay-les-Marais, which is in the Vendée, which is where we are now as well. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's all reclaimed land. The village we lived in actually in Roman times was an island in the sea. The sea is now about 30 odd minutes away. The sea has receded over these years. It's all reclaimed land, but this village was there then, and we've seen some maps from Roman times showing this village. We did the house up, renovated it, turned it into a B&B, got that up and running, and then my partner decided she wanted to come back to England. which wasn't so easy for me because I'd given up my job and everything else and sold my house. So I stayed a little bit longer, probably about another 6 months. But we were very busy on the B&B side, but we're also people were asking us if we could rent it out for holidays. So that's the route we went down at the time. We rented it out for holidays, did that for about a year, and then eventually decided to sell it. And we sold the house, stayed in England, and I never went back. The only time I went back was a couple of times to Paris, but I never went back to the village. So that's my history of why I ended up where I was then, and also why I am where I am now. A lot of people ask, how did we find the house? Are there people who specialise in, somebody said ruins, and old houses? No, not really. All estate agents will show you houses of any description, anything from £1 million down to a house at £20,000. It's basically 3 walls, no roof, and that's it, and you've got to build the rest of it back up. My first instinct was to look at where I'd lived before because I loved the place. The Vendée is the second hottest place in France. It has a microclimate, and that's caused, so I'm told, by all the rivers and being close to the sea, and we equal the south of France on many occasions. So it's just instinct to go back to what you know. So first call was I rang up the estate agents that I'd dealt with before, who in that time, excuse me, had been taken over by a larger company, but the 2 people who I knew still worked there. So I spoke to this guy called Miguel, and I said, have you got anything for sale, what have you? And he said, well, go on our web pages, our new address. So that's what I did. The house I bought was probably one of the first houses I saw, and there was something that attracted me to it. It was in the next village down, it wasn't far, it's still close to the beach and what have you. I looked at loads of others on the internet. Nothing grabbed me like this one. I just saw something about this house, even though it was completely, I don't know, derelict inside. You know, no one had lived there, so we understand, for about 30 years. Briefly, a history on the house. The house is 201 years old. As you've seen, it's right next to the church. When it was built, I don't know if by the church, but for the church. And the priest never lived there, but the nuns did, and nuns occupied the house for quite a long period of time. It all then gets a little bit vague, but from what I understand, over the last 20-30 years, no one has really lived in the house. People have bought it. They've started to do some renovation work and then stopped almost immediately. The last I've heard that happened to the house before I bought it was that in the village, which consists of about 750 people, give or take, there was a boulangerie. And the lady who owned the boulangerie decided to buy the house, which she did. She then slowly started to run out of money, to the point of where she couldn't pay the mortgage she had on the house and run a business and everything else. So she disappeared, and the house was empty for some period of time. Eventually, her 2 brothers took over the house. They were going to renovate it. They stopped pretty quickly and put it on the market, and that's when I bought it. I rang up the estate agents and said, this house in Vouet, I said, tell me a bit about it. And his first words to me were, whatever you do, don't buy this house. It needs a lot of work. Now, one big question I get asked about this house on a lot of occasions is, how much did it cost? And if I'm 100% honest, I can't tell you. If I remember rightly, it was up for £59,000. It included the estate agent fees, but not the notaire fees. I think I offered 52,000 and plus estate agent's fees, which was accepted. There was somebody else looking at the house at the same time and wanted to put an offer in. We got in first, and the offer was accepted. So I'll come on to how you buy a house in France, because it is totally different. And as far as I'm concerned, it has a lot better system, France does, than we do in the UK. The system they have in France, again, this is a question that came up a lot of times, is you will go and view a property. If you want to buy this property, you will make an offer. Let's say that offer is accepted. You then have to fill in the paperwork and you pay a 10% deposit. I hope I'm getting this in the right order because it has changed slightly, but that's what you do. You would pay a 10% deposit. The owner of the house then has to, by law, have an inspection done of the house, which is basically looking for three things: termites and such like, lead paint and asbestos. If any of those are found in the house, you have the legal right to pull out with no costs. If not, from the day of paying the deposit, you have 10 days. After that 10 days, and if nothing's found, you are then tied in to buying the house. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. You can gear it up to say, well, yes, I'll go through as and when my mortgage comes through or when my other house sells, but you cannot just walk away, as you can here, literally a week before you're supposed to exchange contracts and move. If you wish to move away from buying the house, or the owner decides they do not want to sell it to you, they have to pay you 10% of the price, or you have to pay them 10% of the price of the house purchase price. So very rarely do people back out. And to me, that's a lot better system. You don't have to have a survey done, which I didn't have done on this house. You are tied in, and on the day you actually put your deposit down, you can agree a final day to complete. And when I bought this house, where I went in, I paid the deposit, and we agreed a date there and then, come back in a month's time or whatever to complete. Another great thing they have in their system is that the notary, who is like our solicitors, the seller and the buyer can have the same person, which is what happened in my case, which is fantastic, because there's no, I'm waiting for their solicitors to get back to me, or I've sent an email and I don't know if they've received it. It's all done by the same person. And I used a guy in the village who was the son of the notary I used when I bought my first house, so he had all my records and everything else. So I paid around about, I don't know, let's say £53,000 for the house. The system as well is different in France, that the estate agent fees are a lot higher. For example, I think mine were £4,500 or €4,500, let's call it £4,000. If you pull out of the sale, you also have to still pay that estate agent's fees. You cannot walk away, even if you've not bought the house. So the guy I dealt with, Damien, was absolutely fantastic. Nothing was too much trouble. He was always contacting me on the phone, sending me emails. He was there at the notary's office when I completed on the sale, on the purchase. When I went over with a friend of mine to look at the house initially, he sat us down in his office, put a big screen up on the wall and went through everything, translated everything into English, so we knew exactly what we were doing. And I probably spent 2.5 hours with him. I don't think anyone's ever spent more than 20 minutes here in an estate agent's. So it's very, very thorough. On the day of completion, as I say, he was there with me. We signed the paperwork. He gave me the keys. It's my house. The house was previously owned by the church. And they're very, very much, you have got to keep respect for the church, even though it's not owned by them anymore, but it's next to the church. To answer one question, no, we are not joined onto the church. We are completely detached from the church. I think at the narrowest point, we're about 8 inches away from the church wall. So one of the biggest things that we have to respect is the fact that the roof tiles have to be the same as the church. Now that's fine by me, because the church roof tiles are probably the most economical ones to buy. They're what called Roman tiles, and they're just the curved ones, curve over the top and the curve underneath. We're not allowed to have anything that's joined together, modern, and it has to be matching the church. They have to be wooden shutters. We have to keep wooden windows. We can't have any UPVC double glazed windows put in. So when we get round to the work, please don't start sending me messages about why aren't you doing UPVC windows double glazed. We can't. We are not allowed to put those in. The shutters have to be wood, and they can't be a fluorescent type colour. They can't be bright pink, they can't be bright yellow, but they can be blues. Though we are going to change the blues. Thank you everybody who came back with the comments on the shutters. They are going to be done a lighter blue to match in with a lot of the other shutters in the village and surrounding areas. And they were really the main two things that we had to respect. Something we want to do is one of the windows in the main part of the house, we want to make into a door. I'll come on to that why later, and we will need to get planning permission for that. Internally, basically, anything you do it, and it's your risk. If it goes wrong, you've got no one to come back to. The house didn't have a septic tank, or we couldn't find a septic tank. And my mate came over, and we had to get in touch with a company called Spank, SPANC, I believe. And they are the organisation in France for septic tanks, water systems and what have you. They came over, they drew plans up, they told us exactly what we had to put in. And to give you some sort of idea, because a lot of people say, why don't you do this? That wouldn't pass here and that wouldn't pass there. Well, yeah, maybe it wouldn't in furthest Alaska or Brazil or wherever, but in France it does. This system is totally different to ours. And one of the biggest things was when we put this wastewater area in for the septic tank, in the UK it has to be 1 metre underground. In France it can be no more than 8 inches underground. So it's all right having all these systems in the UK or America or Australia or wherever, but when in France, you do as the French do. And we had put it a little bit too deep, so we had to raise it back up again. So we've tried to do whatever we have to do to keep everybody happy. Spank came back, they inspected everything, it was all passed and what have you, so we've got no problems there. We eventually, as you've seen on some of the videos, did find the septic tank. The tank we put in is 3,500 litre tank. It has a 25-year life. And the tank we found in the house was a 1,000 litre tank. And it wasn't a nice find, let's just say that. I had to have somebody come and empty it, then we had to fill it. That was all part of the Spank regulations. So once we'd found it, that's what we did. So all that side is correct. Fortunate for me, Mark, who was a friend of mine over there, was trained as an electrician, and he's done his own house. He's done this house as far as we've got so far. He has probably gone above and beyond what is necessary on some of the piping, on some of the wiring. There's one regulation where we've actually spurred off from the junction box in the gîte, because some people say, they think I keep saying Jeep, it's gîte, which means, for the ones that have asked, a small holiday home. Okay, so we've spurred off from that into the main house, and the regulation says that the wire has to have at least 3 coverings. That includes the rubber going round the wires, the rubber going round the rubber on the wires, and then it has to go in like a conduit, which we've done. We are also going to put it in a wooden box. A box is going to be fitted around it as well. So it's got 4 coverings, which is far beyond what they ever asked for. So, I mean, Mark's done an absolutely fantastic job. I can't thank him enough. We don't have to have any artisan, a French electrician, come and sign it off. The only time we need that is if we ever decide to sell the house. And coming back to buying and selling the house, is if I sell that house within 5 years, I have to pay 33% of any profit I make on it to the government. That's also less any costs I've incurred, septic tank, the electrics and everything else. So, but if I did sell the house, a French electrician would have to come and just sign it off for the next buyer, and there ain't no problem. It will be signed off. It's above and beyond what they would need. The 3 biggest problems with the house was the septic tank, the electrics and the roof. Again, this is something that the estate agent did. He went into it for me and found out and got costs on what it was going to cost me to have someone come and do the work, and then I would pay them. The roof was round about £12,000. The electrics were £8,000, and the septic tank was round about £11,000. Luckily, I've got John, who came over with me, and as you've seen, we put in the septic tank. But even then, it cost us about £7,500 to install the septic tank with all the pipes and everything else. The roof, I've had a quote on the roof, yes, and it is still around the 12 to 13,000, which we've always known we're going to pay. The problem you have is in France, all the roofers, you're on a year's waiting list. They can't come out, they'll come out and have a look at it, they'll give you a price, but then you've got to wait a year for them to come because they're just so busy. and the electrics, as you've seen, Mark's done that. As I say, the house cost me around about £53,000. So far, we're about £30,000 in, and I would say we've probably got another 20,000 to go. There's always the hidden costs that appear. People tend to think that the part we're doing now is everything. It's not, it's just a start. This is a gîte, and I have done you a little drawing of how the house is. Now, this is the ground floor. Okay, so this is the room. The kitchen in the main house is where you see me cutting the wood and doing all the DIY little bits and pieces. The hallway, which goes onto the main road, is here. And that's quite a large room. They're the old stairs that take you upstairs to the old part of the house, and then there's a lounge as well. Now, this kitchen is about 18.5 foot by 18.5 foot. It has been used in the past as a lounge area. We're going to make it into a very large kitchen. You come through a door here into the gîte. Okay, it's showing here there used to be a wall across here where the bathroom used to be. As you saw on the video, we knocked that down. So we've got the gîte with its own entrance and exit door onto the garden, and we've got a shower room and a toilet at the back. This is the church, so you can see it's pretty close to us, but it doesn't touch. This kitchen area here has a window, which you've probably seen on the videos. That is the one we want to make into a door eventually, so that anybody staying in the main part of the house can then step out into the garden and not have to come through the door here and walk round into the garden. That's the plan. Okay, you go up the stairs, and as you go up the old stairs, you come onto the landing upstairs, which is quite a large area. We're going to have 2 bedrooms upstairs again, which are quite large. These will both have ensuite facilities. We've got the pipes in ready to come up. So yeah, there's going to be a family room, and there's going to be a double bedroom. Both will have a toilet and bathroom in there, a bath and a shower. This is the gîte with the stairs coming up. This is what they call a grenier. It was basically an attic. It was used as attic space, but we have now made it into the gîte bedroom, as you've seen, and again the church is on this side. So that's the idea that we have. They're going to be run as 2 separate buildings, probably, though they can be combined together, and I'll come on to that in a bit. So what are we going to do with the house in the future? Well, let me answer the question that comes up all the time. We are not going to live there because of Brexit and because of family commitments. You know, Susan and myself, we've got grandchildren, and we've got a lot of commitment here, and we like living here. And France, to get to the house, it's an hour's flight, or we can drive down, you know. So we're going to use it basically as a holiday home. We did initially talk about living there full time, but it's too complicated. And because I'm now retired, the rules in France say that if you're retired and want to live there, so I understand, before anybody jumps down my throat, so I understand is you've got to have a guaranteed income of £22,000, and that's, I think, been based on the fact that that's the pension for retired people in France. It's nothing like that in the UK. I think it's probably about £8,000 less. So you've either got to have private incomes or something else coming in to be able to live there. You can buy a long-term visa, or you can apply for a long-term visa, I should say, which, yeah, it does cost money. Parts of the EU are what's called the Schengen area. And what that stipulates is that any visitors to France from a country that's not part of the EU can only spend 90 days of every 180, and this gets complicated, can only spend 90 days of 180 in France or any of the other Schengen countries. So you can't go, let's say, from France to Germany and spend 90 days there, then come back and spend 90 days in France. It doesn't work like that. It's all of the countries. How that works is, and I'll try and explain it as simply as I can, is that from the day you set foot on any of those Schengen countries, the clock starts ticking. You then count 180 days forward. And from the day I landed there, after Brexit, and just as a side note, I purchased my house the day before Brexit was completed. But anyway, so from the day you set foot on French soil, you count 100 days. And my day is, I think, the 17th of March. In that period of time, the maximum you can stay is 90 days. But after that 180-day period, you can't just say, well, I'll have another 90 days now, because what they do from that 17th of March, they count backwards. So from the 17th of March, as you count 180 days backwards, it goes to the first day I arrived. Once we get past, well, let's say we get to the 18th of March, the whole 180 days moves one day down. So the very first day falls off. So if you like, I'm allowed one more day. That's why I've had gaps in between to increase the amount of time I can stay there further down the line. And it just keeps on moving. So every time you want to calculate how long you've been there, you go from the day you're there, 17th of March, count 180 days backwards and tot up the amount of days you've been there. The initial idea was we was going to go down the Airbnb route, but we've decided not to, for a lot of reasons, but we've decided not to. And we're just going to rent it out, the gîte or the main house, when that is completed, to friends, family, friends of family, friends of friends, and anybody like that, including any subscribers. If anybody wants to use the house, you're more than welcome to. Just contact me. We've already started taking bookings, and it's not completed yet, just for the gîte. We've looked around, we've took a lot of advice, spoke to a lot of people, and the gîte, when completed, should easily fetch in £500 a week. We have decided that for the first year, 2022, the gîte, instead of being £500 a week, we're going to do it at £295 a week. So we think that's a fair price, but just because we can't guarantee that, you know, the house next door won't be finished, we may be working there some days, you know, we may be there. But yes, if anyone was interested, they just need to contact us, and you know, you can book the gîte. It's going to happen. Eventually, when the main house is finished, we will either rent that out as well. We can rent it as a separate unit with 2 bedrooms. It will have an enormous kitchen, a lounge, or if let's say 2 or 3 families wanted to go, it would sleep up to probably 8-10 people, and so you could have the whole building. They are easily divided with doors and whatever, so you'll have no contact unless you want to with the people. They can't get into your area, you can't get into theirs, so it is nice and secure. Another question comes up: how do you get on with the French people? What are they like? They are fantastic. They cannot do enough for you. They're more than willing to come over and help. We've had a guy from across the road who's a plumber. He's come over and done little jobs for us, no charge. I think the time I went with Suze and Mick, we were there 14 days. In that 14-day period, we only ate in the house, I think, twice. The rest of the time, we were invited out to people's houses, people we did not know. They come round. Yes, you're a bit of a novelty. There's also some English here. There are 2 or 3 English people live in the village. They come around. They love the fact that we're renovating this house. This house has been left like this for many, many years. This crazy English guy has come over and is spending all his money on making it look beautiful again, hopefully. Answer another question: no, I don't speak French. I know enough to get me by in the bar, which is the most important thing. I know how to order beer and wine and food. I know enough to get me around the DIY centres. I know enough bad French to talk to people when I'm looking for something and what have you. And the French really appreciate the fact that you will make the effort. It's no good going there thinking they should be speaking English. It's not going to work. And they expect you to make the effort. If you make the effort and make a mess of it, they don't care. They just appreciate the fact that you've done that. And a lot of them do speak English. And waving your arms around and playing charades gets you by. You know, then they're just the same. And you just pick up odd words and you understand what they're on about. Where the house is situated, we're right in the middle of the village. As I say, there's only 750 people approximately live there. We're 2 doors down from the restaurant and bar, which serves fantastic food and has just been taken over. And we ate there a lot of times and drank there a lot of times too. They have a festival or like a market. I may be getting this totally wrong, but I believe it's every Thursday in July and August. Every Thursday, and they close the roads off. They have a street market, they have bars put up, they have a band on and food and everything else. And people come from miles around to attend this. So yeah, it's a beautiful little village to live in. We're approximately 30 minutes from the beach, La Tronche. We're 40 minutes away from La Rochelle. all I can say is Google La Rochelle. It's got a beautiful harbour, a lot of history. Another question that comes up a lot, and I can understand why people ask me this question. The house is made from stone. It's 201 years old. It was built. People say, when you put the plasterboard up, why are you not insulating all the walls? Well, one, we want to keep the stone walls as much as we can. These walls are 2 foot thick. It's the second hottest place in France, and in summer it keeps the house cool. And yes, I will put insulation in some of the walls, but not all of it. You know, we're going to keep it as it was. The one thing we said was we're going to keep as much of the character of this house as we possibly can. I don't want it to look like a modern house inside. We've got 1 or 2 more stone walls to do. Yes, in some of the bedrooms we are going to plasterboard and put insulation in and whatever, because they put concrete on the walls. The garden we intend to landscape. We're going to have a nice decking system over where the septic tank is, which we're allowed to do, as long as we've got a hatch to get at it. The trees, no, my partner was not trying to chop a tree down with a little saw. She was cutting the ivy away that was damaging the tree. The gates, people ask about the gates. Yes, they're going to be cleaned up. I've had loads of people come and ask to buy the gates off me, but I don't want to do that. I want to clean them all up and all the railings and reinstate them as and when we possibly can. There will be a parking area in the garden next to the well and the trough, enough for probably 2 cars. That's it. So, you know, the one thing I have learnt on YouTube, especially in the recent couple of weeks, months, since you can't please all the people all the time. You know, and I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to do an honest job, up to what is required for the house to be somewhere nice to stay and nice to spend a holiday and whatever. I'm all for constructive criticism. Some people just go far beyond that, and if they do, I just delete it. I don't even bother answering them. But if you've got a question at any time, why have we done this? What are we going to do? What was the reason for that? Then ask. I am getting an awful lot of questions and comments and whatever on the tube, so I can't answer them all the time, but I do try to work my way through them. I've just bought a trailer off somebody in France. It's over there now. I'm having a tow bar fitted on my car, so we hope to start clearing the garden of all the rubble and waste. So that will be another job that you'll see me doing next time. Any ideas you have for the videos, more than welcome to listen to them. You know, I'm not Steven Spielberg. I have 1 camera, so you can guess how many times I have to move that camera to get all the different shots. Just one other thing that I've just thought of. You may have noticed on the last couple of videos, there's been no advertising, and there shouldn't be any advertising on any of the videos now. When I watch YouTube channels, and I watch a lot, they drive me bonkers. And I didn't do this to make money. I did this for a bit of fun. As I said before, I didn't expect to get many viewers. But I did it for a bit of fun and just as something to do, really, to keep a record of the house, which has come in useful on a number of occasions. So I've decided at the moment there's going to be no advertising on there. But I find them annoying. I'm sure most people do. We've had a lot of people come to us and say, why don't you open a Patreon page? So I looked into it and I've set one up. It's £1 a month if you want, or up to I think £5 a month, and you get different levels of things in that. But if anybody wants to become a Patreon, click on the link, and if you want to pay £1 a month towards something, that's fantastic. There's also buy me a coffee. Everything will go into buying tools, buying nails, buying paint, and what have you. So yeah, thanks for watching. As always, thank you for subscribing. Please press the like button, the thumbs up button. It does help the channel. The more likes we get, the more comments we get, good or bad, the more people YouTube show our channel to, sort of thing. So yeah, as always, thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time you take to make a comment, a suggestion and what have you. Okay, hope that's answered everything. And if not, just leave a comment below and I'll come back to you directly. Okay, cheers.